Be careful right now. I need you to actually hear me on this one. Because what I'm about to say is going to sting a little before it heals anything. These people, the ones you are already picturing, do not lie. They secretly hate you. Not because you did anything wrong, because you did the one thing they could never forgive. You kept being yourself, out loud, in a world that begged you to shrink. That's it. That's the whole crime. And I must warn you, because if you don't see this clearly, you are going to keep excusing behavior that was never about you in the first place. Okay, let's slow down for a second, because I know how that landed. Maybe you felt your stomach drop a little, like, why is she talking about my life right now? Yeah, I am. Because I've seen this pattern play out so many times, it stopped surprising me a long time ago. There is a very specific kind of person who smiles at you in the group chat and then goes quiet the second you post something good. There is a very specific coworker who says, "So happy for you," through their teeth. And there is a family member who brings up your old self like it's a cautionary tale instead of just growth. You felt this. You felt the temperature change in a room the second you walked in looking a little too happy, a little too confident, a little too much like you actually like your life. And you told yourself you were imagining it. You are not. You are not. Let me give you something real, something specific, because I don't want this to feel like some vague horoscope nonsense. Sorry. Picture this. You are at a get-together, maybe a birthday, maybe just a Friday night thing, and you say something funny, something clever, something that actually lands, and for 1/2 of a second, there is this tiny pause before people laugh. Like they were not expecting you to be that quick, that sharp, that alive. And then somebody changes the subject a little too fast. Or somebody says, "Must be nice," under their breath, and laughs like it's a joke. Except it isn't a joke. And you both know it isn't a joke. That's the exact moment I'm talking about. Because in the pause, something quite got confirmed for you, something you'd been sensing for months, maybe years, and you didn't have the language for it yet. You do now. And here is where it gets strange, because it's not really about what you did. It was never about what you did. It's about what you represent to them. You represent the version of themselves they gave up on. You are, without even trying, a walking, talking a reminder of a road they didn't take. And people do not handle that well. Some people can look at themselves living at someone, living fully and feel inspired. Other people look at that same person and feel accused, even though nobody accused them of anything. You just existed near them, doing your thing, and it lit up every unlived dream they buried under work, under bills, under... That's just how life is. And instead of asking themselves why that hurts, it's so much easier to make it about you, to decide you are too much, to decide you are changed, to decide you think you are better than anyone, everyone. You have heard that line before, haven't you? You think you're better than anybody else. Say it back to yourself right now and notice how it doesn't even fit. You never said that. You never even thought that. What you actually did was stop apologizing for taking up space. What you actually did was start choosing yourself in small, quiet ways nobody even noticed except the people standing closest to you. The ones you'd build their whole comfort around you, staying small. And when you stopped shrinking, their whole footing shifted. That's not your fault. That's just physics. When one person in a relationship grows, the relationship either grows with them or it starts to crack. Physics. Here's what I'm feeling as I say this, and I want you to really sit with it. The discomfort you have caused these people isn't because you hurt them. It's because you stopped being the mirror that made them feel okay about staying stuck. As long as you were quiet, as long as you were doubting yourself, as long as you were the one apologizing first, everyone around you got to feel comfortable. The second you stopped doing that, the room changed. And instead of asking, wait, hold on a moment, why does their growth bother me? It was so much easier for them to whisper about you behind your back, to start little rumors that do not quite make sense if you actually examine them, to say, I heard he's been acting different. Like, different is automatically a bad word. And I need you to really let this next part land, because this is the part people don't say out loud enough. You are allowed to make people uncomfortable simply by living well. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just because your full version makes their unresolved stuff surface. That's their work to do, not yours to shrink around. Let's go even deeper for a second, because there is a piece of this that's honestly a little painful to say. Think about the moments you have held yourself back. And because you didn't have the thought, or the joke, or the idea, or the plan. But because some part of you had already calculated the cost of being seen. You've done this. Everyone who's ever felt this kind of quiet hostility from people around them has done this. You feel something forming, some spark of an idea, some bold move, some honest sentence you want to say. And right as it reaches your mouth, you swallow it. You go small. Instead, you make yourself agreeable instead of accurate. You laugh instead of correcting someone. You said, it's fine, when it was absolutely, completely not fine. And nobody in that room even noticed what you gave up in that moment, because that's the cruel part. The sacrifice is invisible to everyone except you. But you felt it. You felt something closed quietly inside you, like a door easing shut in the back of your own mind. And you walked away from that interaction feeling two things at the same time, at the exact same time. Relief because you avoided the friction and this hollow, low-grade ache, because some part of you knew exactly what that friction avoidance cost you. That ache has a name. It's the toll of shrinking to keep other people comfortable. And it adds up. It adds up in ways actually you don't notice until one day you look around and realize you have built an entire personality out of managing other people's feelings about your own success. So let's talk about why this actually happens, because understanding it changes everything. When someone watches you build something, a career, a relationship, a body, a sense of peace, whatever it is, and they haven't done the same work themselves, your progress becomes a kind of silent scoreboard they never asked to be measured against. Nobody enjoys being reminded of a scoreboard they are losing on. So the mind does something sneaky to protect itself instead of thinking, I should start doing what they are doing, which is hard and scary and requires change, work. It's so much easier to think there is something wrong with them for doing it. Yeah. That flips the whole equation. Suddenly your growth isn't inspiring, it's suspicious. Suddenly your confidence isn't earned, it's arrogance. Suddenly your joy isn't something to celebrate, it's something to whisper about. That's projection. Yeah, that's the oldest trick the human mind plays on itself. And it's happening to you constantly, whether you'll clock it or not. And here is the second layer under that. The one that stings even more. The people closest to you are usually the ones most likely to do this, not strangers. A stranger has nothing invested in keeping you small. But a sibling who grew up watching you get the same opportunities they had, a friend, beloved friend, who used to be your equal in every category, and now watches you pull ahead, a partner, lover, or an ex who built their identity around being the strong one, while you played small. Those are people who feel your growth the hardest, because your growth threatens the whole structure of the relationship they have built their self-worth on. So they don't celebrate it, they quietly resent it, unfortunately. And because outright saying, I'm jealous of you, feels humiliating, it comes out sideways instead, as criticism, as distance, as we don't really talk anymore, as backhanded compliments, as suddenly needing space right when you needed support the most. Remember earlier when I mentioned that moment at the gathering, the pause before the laugh, the must be nice comment. Hold on to that because here is what changes everything. That moment wasn't a random social awkwardness. It was a tiny, involuntary confession. In that half second, someone's guard slipped just enough to slow you what was actually underneath. Not dislike of you as a person, but discomfort with what your presence stirs up in them. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. Yeah, you cannot. Every cold shoulder, every weird energy shift, every unexplained distance starts making a different kind of sense. It's not that you are too much. It's that you are living a living reminder of what's possible. And not everyone is ready to look at that reminder honestly. So here is the deeper thing underneath all of it. The thing, this whole warning has actually been circling around from the very first sentence. These people secretly hate you because you did the bravest, most ordinary thing a person can do. You kept becoming yourself instead of staying who they needed you to be. That's the whole title right there. Laid bare. Not some huge betrayal, not some dramatic thing you did to them. Just you quietly refusing to disappear. And once you understand that, the sting of their behavior starts losing its grip on you. Because you cannot actually, you stop asking because you stop asking what's wrong with me that they act this way. And you start asking the more accurate question. What is it? What is it about my life that they cannot sit comfortably next to? That question puts the weight back where it always belonged, on them, not on you. But here's the part I really want you to take with you. Because understanding a problem without doing anything with it is just a really well-informed kind of stuck. You do not need a big, dramatic confrontation with these people. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't even need them to admit what's happening, because most of them never will. Trust me, they never will. Not out loud. Maybe not even to themselves. What you actually need is so much simpler and honestly so much more powerful. Permission from yourself to keep going anyway. Keep having the ideas nobody else in the room is having. Keep saying the joke instead of swallowing it. Keep taking up the space you used to apologize for. Keep glowing, even when someone's face tightens a little when you walk in looking genuinely happy, especially then. Because their discomfort was never evidence that you did something wrong. It was evidence that you did something right, something brave, something most people never get around to doing, which is simply choosing to be fully yourself. In a world that constantly asks people to negotiate themselves down to a more manageable size. Think about how many people you know who dimmed themselves down permanently just to keep the peace with somebody, not with themselves, with somebody who was never going to be at peace anyway. Don't become one of them. The isolation you might have felt, the friendships that quite faded, the family gatherings that started feeling a little colder, none of that was proof that something is wrong with you. It was the natural, uncomfortable byproduct of outgrowing a version of yourself that other people found easier to be around. Of course, it's painful, yeah. But that's not a tragedy. That's just what growth costs sometimes. And it's always worth paying. So here's the choice sitting in front of you. And it's really not complicated, even though it can feel that way in the moment. You can keep shrinking to manage other people's reactions to your own life. Keep swallowing the joke idea. Keep saying, it's fine. Keep making yourself small and agreeable and easy to be around at the cost of ever fully being yourself. That path is familiar. That path feels safe. It will also slowly, quietly cost you the exact thing that made people notice you in the first place. Or you can just keep being who you already were becoming before anyone had an opinion about it. You can let the discomfort of the people around you be information instead of instruction. Information tells you something true about where you stand with someone. Instruction tells you to change yourself to fix it. You only ever need the information. You never owned anyone the instruction. And listen, the people who genuinely love you, the ones whose comfort actually comes from your growth instead of your smallness, they are not going anywhere. Your growth doesn't threaten real connection. It only threatens the kind of relationship that was quietly depending on you staying exactly where you were. Let those relationships recalibrate or fall away naturally. You don't have to fight for anyone's comfort at your expense of your own becoming. You are allowed to be the one who got out. You are allowed to be the one who kept trying after everyone else settled. You are allowed to walk into a room and feel good in your own skin without shrinking to make anyone else's discomfort disappear. That was never your job. And honestly, it never should have been. Let's stay here a little longer, because there is more underneath that I don't want you to miss. Think about how this actually shows up day to day, in the small, boring, easy to dismiss moments, not just the big dramatic ones. It's the friend who likes your post but never comments anymore. It's the relative who asks about your job in this weirdly flat tone, like they are bracing themselves for good news they don't actually want to hear. It's the coworker who suddenly gets very interested in your process the second you get recognized for something, asking a few too many questions, a little too casually, little like they are trying to find a crack in it. None of these things are huge on their own. That's exactly why they work. Nobody ever confronts you over a flat tone or a missing comment, so the pattern just keeps repeating quietly for years, and you are left doing this exhausting math in your head. Am I imagining this? Or is something actually going on here? Is it you are not imagining it? Your nervous system picking up on something real long before your conscious mind had the vocabulary to explain it. And that gap between sensing something and being able to name it is exactly where self-doubt loves to live. Yeah. Here's another layer worth sitting with, worth saying it. A lot of this hostility doesn't even come from people who dislike you as the whole person. It comes from people who like plenty of things about you and still cannot stand one specific thing. Your momentum. Yeah. Momentum is loud even when you're being quiet about it. You don't have to announce your progress for people to feel it. They feel it in the way you carry yourself differently now. They feel it in the fact that you stopped asking for permission before making decisions about your own life. They feel it in the way you don't over-explain yourself anymore. Momentum has a presence, and presence is exactly what makes people who have stalled out feel like they are standing still in comparison. That feeling is uncomfortable enough that some people would honestly rather quietly resent you than confront their own stagnation. It's easier to whisper, they have changed, than to ask, why haven't I? And listen, some of the discomfort isn't even fully conscious, on their end. That's an important distinction because it's tempting to imagine everyone around you sitting in a room plotting against you like some kind of villain in a movie. Realistically, most of it is much messier and much more human than that. It's somebody feeling a flash of something ugly when they see your good news, immediately feeling guilty about that flash. And then instead of processing the guilt, redirecting it outward as a little jab, a little joke at your expense, a little must be nice. They are not sitting down playing your downfall. They are reacting in the moment to a feeling they do not want to have and don't know what to do with. That doesn't make the impact on you any less real, but it does mean you are not actually dealing with master manipulators most of the time. You are dealing with regular people, mishandling an uncomfortable emotion, and choosing you as the release valve instead of doing the harder internal work. Now, here is where I want you to really pay attention, because this is the part that quietly changes how you move through the rest of your life. Once you can see this pattern clearly, envy dressed up as criticism, insecurity dressed up as distance, discomfort dressed up as concern, you stop taking the bait. You stop shrinking every time someone's face tightens. You stop rehearsing your accomplishments in a smaller, more apologetic voice just to make them easier to swallow for people who were never going to be happy for you anyway. You start noticing the pattern in real time instead of only in hindsight, which means you get to choose your response instead of reacting on autopilot. And here is something people don't say enough. Setting a boundary with someone like this is not cruelty. It's clarity. You don't have to explain your growth to anyone who's already decided to be uncomfortable with it. You don't owe a defense of your happiness to someone who only felt close to you when you were struggling. You are allowed to quietly change how much access someone has to your life without turning it into a whole confrontation. Not everyone needs a dramatic goodbye speech. Some relationships just need less of your energy, less of your updates, less of your excitement, given freely to someone who's shown you again and again. Then your good news makes them go quiet instead of glad. That's not bitterness on your part. That's just self-preservation. And self-preservation is one of the most underrated forms of self-respect there is. I also want to say this clearly because I don't want you to walking away from this feeling paranoid about every single person in your life. Not everyone who goes quiet is secretly resentful. Not everyone who's busy is avoiding you. Real friends have real reasons or seasons where life gets loud and attention gets thin. And that's just being human, not hostility. The difference you are learning to spot isn't utter distance. It's the specific flavor of distance that only shows up right when things are going well for you. The kind that evaporates the second you are struggling again and suddenly so easy to talk to. Okay. That specific pattern, appearing and disappearing based on your wins and losses, is the thing worth paying attention to. Ordinary human distance doesn't have that rhythm. Envy does. So where does that leave you? It leaves you exactly where you should be. Still here, still building, still becoming whoever you were always underneath all that shrinking. The discomfort of the people who cannot sit with your growth was never a referendum on your worth. It was and still is a strange kind of compliment, one wrapped in cold shoulders and backhanded comments instead of applause, but a compliment all the same. Because you don't provoke that reaction in people by being small. You provoke it by being unmistakably, undeniably yourself. Keep being that. Keep taking up the space. Keep saying the joke, chasing the opportunity, walking into the room like you'll belong there. Because you do. You do. Let their discomfort be their homework, not your burden. And if any part of this actual named something you have carrying quietly for a while now, tell me in the comments which moment hit closest to you, to home. The pause before the laugh, the must be nice, the friend who went quiet right when things got good, lover, ex. Yeah, I read every single comment on this, and honestly, some of the most eye-opening stories on this whole channel come from you telling me exactly what you noticed the moment you finally had the words for it. Love you.